Welcome back to Breakfast with Bob, Boston Marathon Edition, 120th running of the Boston Marathon. We're presented to you by Hyland's Leg Cramps, Stop the Cramps, Not Your Race, and NormaTec Pulse Recovery System. Our next guest, renowned author, best-selling author, over 20 books in his career, Mr. Matt Fitzgerald. Matt, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. It's so awesome to be in this chair next to you.
Well, you know, we've been in this industry together for a long, long time, man. I remember when you were writing some of your first books. Can you believe that you're a best-selling author after all these years?
The first time I ever set eyes on you would have been 1995, I think, at Competitor Awards.
Endurance Awards.
Yeah, exactly.
SeaWorld.
Yep. And it just to think about how much has happened since then. It's incredible. It's been a whirlwind.
Well, and one of I think your breakthrough book to me was Racing Weight, right? From a couple perspectives. One, I think people really hadn't addressed the subject. People talk about this is a workouts you had to do, but people were sort of ignoring the fact that if you want to run fast, you've got to be lighter, right? And your nutrition is such a big part of it. What led to creating that book?
You know, like most athletes, I spend a lot of time complaining about how much I weigh and hearing other athletes complain about, I wish I were lighter, I wish I could lose these few extra ounces. A bunch of skinny people standing around wishing they were even skinnier. Yeah. And so I thought, this is a legitimate piece of the performance equation. And I saw athletes going out to the same resources that truly overweight and sedentary people were using to lose weight. South Beach diet or whatever. Nothing against those things, but they're not appropriate to athletes. And I am a sports nutritionist, so I thought, let me do something about this.
Right. Were you surprised at the reception of the book? Because the book really caught fire.
Yeah, it really did. It's funny. I was just talking to someone else about it, and my agent pitched that book to probably 25 publishers, and only one made an offer on it. Yeah, exactly. The idea was that this is a diet book for skinny people and no one's going to buy it. But so I believe that there was a true need for it. Whether that translated into people actually recognizing the value in what I was offering, that I couldn't have predicted. No way.
And talk a little bit about your new book, How Bad Do You Want It?
Right.
Because one of my favorite guys in the world, One Arm Willie Stewart, is in the book.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what led to the book. Obviously, it's selling well. You sold out here at the Boston Marathon Expo. What led to I like the variety of the books you write.
Yep.
You got Racing Weight, How Bad Do You Want It, Iron War. It seems like you're one of those guys who likes to be challenged and likes to be not just repeating the same thing.
Right, yeah. My idea of hell is writing the same thing twice. I really consider myself a writer first and kind of an expert second. So I'm always looking to explore new things. And because I'm an athlete and a coach myself, I've got this pipeline of never-ending ideas, for things to write about. I've always been very interested not just in the nutrition side of the sport, but in the psychology of endurance sports. Similar deal where I felt like there was an unmet need there because the psychology of endurance racing is so different from the psychology of golf. They're both very mental sports, but everything out there seemed to be, it was trying to apply the same principles and tools to everyone.
Right.
And I thought, no, we need something that's very specific to the challenges, the psychological challenges that we as endurance athletes face. And there's a lot of really exciting research going on in that area now. And I've developed relationships with some of those scientists. So that was really where the book came from.
And when you start talking about the psychology of racing, right, or the psychology of athletics, the fact that you did a book on Mark Allen and Dave Scott, two guys who are probably as mentally tough as anybody on the planet. I mean, you got Mark Allen, the grip of death, and you got Dave Scott, the man. And, I mean, Dave Scott just wills himself to win, and Mark, just the way that he immersed himself in the shaman lifestyle, and he would do anything it took to make himself better and make himself mentally stronger.
Yep.
What did you learn from those guys?
They are the living proof, because it sounds like a platitude. This sport is more than half mental. I think it's hard for recreational level athletes to really understand how true that is, because you look at yourself compared to a Mark Allen and a Dave Scott, and you think, oh, they're just more talented than I am. And of course they are, but if you look at the differences between Dave Scott and Mark Allen, or first and second, they will tell you it's mental, and they mean it. You know, they're not just saying that, and that's what's cool about some of this new science I was referring to, is that it's proving that really is the case, that you can overcome being the slightly weaker physically athlete with a slightly better mental game. It's a real thing.
So how do you change your mental game?
Well, you know, what's cool about it, and it's why I love endurance sports, is that, and this is something that actually Mark Allen said, that Mark said, Ironman is a test of you as a person, in addition to a test of you as an athlete.
Yeah.
Your whole self, your whole personality,
being.
whole personality is invested. Whatever your mental strengths and weaknesses are in everyday life, at work, in relationships, those are the same strengths and weaknesses that you bring to the race course.
Right.
And so what I love is that it's a journey of personal development. You know, to overcome, fear and other obstacles, to better performance as an athlete, you have to grow as a human being. And so what's frustrating is that when I write a book about it, I can't just hand you a 5-step recipe.
It's not like, here's the 5 steps to be mentally tougher.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I've bottled it up, for $5.99, you have mental toughness. It doesn't work like that.
But it would be good if it did.
Oh man, I would
be making some bucks.
Yes, I'd be retired.
So your background is running from early on?
Yeah, so I started running when I was 11. My father ran the Boston Marathon, his first Boston Marathon in 1983. My 2 brothers and I ran the last mile with him. And you can imagine what a transformatively magical experience that was for an 11-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
And so as soon as I crossed that finish line, I thought, I want to be a runner.
Sure.
And here I am, 33 years later, still running.
And you ran all through high school, and you run in college as well?
Yeah, I ran all through high school, and then kind of burned out. I chose my college because it had a good track program, but ended up burning out and not running in college, and then getting back into it shortly thereafter.
And you also got in the triathlon. You did Ironman stuff.
Yep.
Today, though, it's still more running than anything else?
Yeah, so I just did my first ultra marathon. So
this last weekend.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, and that was which one was that?
The American River 50 miler.
And what'd you think?
It was exactly what I was looking for. Just a tremendous, humbling challenge. And I made a lot of rookie mistakes, but I loved it. I loved that new and different challenge, and so I'll be back for more.
So what do you see as, that was a new challenge for you. Now do you see yourself going, okay, now I got to do Western States and Leadville and move up in distance and challenge?
I think I'm going to take another crack at an Ironman.
Really?
First. Yeah, you know what, Bob, I have registered, over the years I've registered for 5 Ironman triathlons and only made it to the starting line of 1.
Really?
Yeah, just injuries.
Just life got in the way.
Injuries. Yeah, I'm very brittle, so I have to do everything right and then get a little lucky on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a monkey on my back, and plus I love it. If I've been only running for a while, I start to miss the bike, and I always cross-train. But
I was going to say, especially someone who's fragile.
Right, yeah.
And I see that as one of the biggest issues is that people, the orthopedic reality is every runner needs to become a cyclist at some point in their life if they want to continue in endurance.
Yeah.
And you realize that fairly early.
Yeah. It's interesting that even when I'm in full-on running mode, like I have been recently, I only run 3 times a week.
Yes.
I work out 12 times a week, but I wish more runners understood that you're not giving anything up. 3 times a week is a minimum.
Yes.
If you want to perform as a runner, you got to do that. But you can spend the rest of your time on a bike or an elliptigo or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Get that fitness and carry it right back over without the injury risk.
We were interviewing a guy yesterday, 65 years old, and he won Philly Marathon years and years ago. And he'd sort of given up running because he was always injured and always sore, and he somehow stumbled into cross training a year ago. And he's like, I feel better than ever.
Yes.
I've cut my running back, and I'm cycling, and I'm swimming, and I'm doing stretching. And it seems like we all know that, but a lot of people train for a marathon, get into a charity program, run 60 miles a week. They're doing double knee braces, and they're staggering across the finish line, and then we lose them out of our sport.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's the same, it was the same for me too. I had to learn the hard way that you can cross-train without sacrificing anything.
And without running being hurt.
Yeah, I just had to hit my head against the wall, and I think, it's unfortunate that most runners they won't have faith in that before they have no choice and they have to cross-train. So I try to preach that message. Do it prophylactically, but before you have to start doing it, and you'll benefit.
So Willie is featured in your new book. What's the mental strength that Willie brings to the table?
It's a book with 12 chapters.
Yes.
Each tells a story about a different great endurance athlete who overcame some major challenge and sort of exemplifies what I call a coping skill that is beneficial to endurance athletes. So Willie's is focus. And kind of the theme of that chapter, it's called the workaround effect, and it's the idea that often a physical setback can turn into an opportunity for a workaround that actually makes you a better athlete than you would have been if you hadn't had that setback.
Right.
If in Willie's case, it was an extreme setback.
Losing his arm.
He lost an arm.
Yeah.
But he would be the first to tell you, because he was a rugby player initially, he would be the first to tell you he was a better rugby player with one arm than he had been with two, for two reasons. One, he became mentally stronger. He gained focus. But two, he also, through neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to sort of rewire itself, when you can't do something the way you always used to do it, and you refuse to give up, your brain is super creative and will find different ways.
Right.
And so, Willie he changed his whole technique as a rugby player and became better, and then got into endurance sports and was able to bring that same sort of adaptability and focus to endurance sports as well.
Well, it's interesting with Willie, as I remember watching video of him from his rugby days, and he said he caught the ball better when he only had one hand than when he had with two hands, obviously the focal point. But he also said he was pretty damn angry about losing his arm.
Exactly.
And having that anger in rugby is not a bad thing.
No. Yeah, it's funny because human beings, we're animals, and anger and some of the things we think of as negative emotions can be performance enhancing.
Right.
This doesn't mean that you want to go out and become an angry person just to be a better athlete. But there's another story in the book that I talk about, Cadell Evans.
Yes.
Who was he was just this genetic freak, someone who was just born to win the Tour de France.
Yes.
But sort of like Mark Allen with the Ironman, lost it 6 times before he won it. And he had to lose it 6 times before he could win it. He had all the other tools, but what he lacked was this kind of resilience. And he built up the resilience by getting angry and frustrated with failing, stalling out one step shy of the mountaintop again and again and again. And then when he finally raced the Tour angry, that was the last ingredient that he needed to finally win the thing.
Did you see that? I mean, because when you think about a Tom Brady, felt like he was overlooked, right? Mark Allen lost the Ironman 6 times, won a 7th time. Greg Welch, same type of thing.
Yep.
Is that a pattern that you see out there with a lot of these athletes?
Absolutely. It's the whole bulletin board material type of thing, or the chip on the shoulder.
Or a missing piece in your own arsenal that you needed to add through losing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's yet another chapter in the book where I talk about a couple of rowers from New Zealand.
Right.
And they won the double sculls gold medal in the 2012 Olympics. And of the 13 teams, the 26 athletes in that competition, they were the 2 smallest by a long shot. And rowing is a sport that rewards size.
Bulk, yeah.
So these guys obviously had to overcome a physical disadvantage, and they did it because they both had chips on their shoulders from years of being refused selection to national teams because they just didn't look the part. And, they both obviously had something in them that wasn't going to be broken by that sort of rejection. But the rejection helped them in the long term. It just toughened them up, put a chip on their shoulder, and they used it.
So the book is called How Bad Do You Want It? And the book is available, I'm assuming, Amazon and all the places.
Everywhere books are sold, yes.
Everywhere books are sold. I love that. Matt, thanks so much for taking time. And what's next? What's the next book? Or is it...
Yeah, so I'm working on a book now called The Endurance Diet. So it's intended to be the last word on the controversial subject of how best to eat as an endurance athlete.
Well, it's funny. I've in this last 6 months, I've changed my eating entirely. And what I learned from it was the workouts had nothing to do with getting my weight down.
Right.
It really, and so many of us do a workout and go, oh, well, I deserve a pizza, I deserve a Coke, I deserve a cookie, and the next thing you know, every workout you've done, you haven't lost anything. If any, you gain weight.
Exactly, yep.
And that's the big mistake a lot of us make.
Yeah, and the motivation comes from different places. You don't have to motivate an athlete to work out, but to eat better, that is often a tougher challenge.
Love that. Matt, thanks so much, man. Always a pleasure. Congrats on all the books.
Thank you.
How Bad Do You Want It? Again, my name is Bob Babbitt. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.